Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me in my kitchen. Um, Today I am going to make something that is kind of a comfort food. I was noticing when I got up that it was cold. Sorry about that, bumping a little bit. Um, I noticed it was cold, and while I was sitting on the couch with my robe on, I would love something that just warms my heart, that warms my soul, that makes me think of winter and October. And so I'm going to make a cabbage and apples, and I'm throwing in a couple of twists. This is a recipe that originally, when I worked in a German bakery in California, they would every once in a while they would make this sausage with red cabbage and apples and onions, and oh my gosh, it would just make the whole kitchen smell so wonderful, just having those apples and that cabbage. And if you've watched a couple of my videos, you know that I'm really working on eating non-starch veggies that are good for me. I'm an Rh negative, and a lot of people hear me talk about my blood type. I'm not a vampire, but a lot of my health issues have led me to do research in other areas, holistic and science based understanding of eating and our ancestry. And I've been really being brought back to a lot of the basic foods that I had most of my life growing up, or foods that I'm naturally attracted to. I mean, I'm sure we all have that. We go through the grocery store and our eyes look at some things and we automatically grab them, and then other times we go to other things and we're like, okay, I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to deal with that. So today I'm just, I'm going to really try to just kind of make my own little thing. It's cold. On the East Coast this morning, we're all feeling it, and also with the tragedies that have been happening, comfort any way that everyone can get it. And this is a really simple, very cheap meal. I got cabbage, I got some shredded carrots, and I got some apples, and I happen to have some beets that I had on hand for a while, and I'm going to use them up in this recipe. They're already kind of ribboned, but I think the most expensive thing might be beets, but there's a couple different products. If you look around in the store, you'll probably be able to find one that actually fits your budget. And cabbage is really good for us. I mean, I know it's kind of weird. It sits there at the grocery store and looks at you, and you're like, what am I going to do with this cabbage? And I think that used to be, got a little carrot in there already. That used to be my issue was, what do you do with some of these vegetables, especially if you're new? I'm going to put a little olive oil on it because, I like to mix my fats and my oils. I'm a strange girl like that. I'm also like I said, trying to get some extra things in here and there. If you follow my blogs or my videos or on Facebook, you know that I take eating kind of like medicine, and so I try to put little tricks in with my eating to help with my health and with making good choices. I think I'm gonna should probably get a pan for that. This extra big one. I think that one of the things too is, in thinking about this meal, it made me think of like winter, and how during the winter warm foods are just so good for us. Warms our hearts, kind of like why well, not all of us, but that's probably why I like cold coffee in the summer, and you know warm coffee in the winter. Now, I definitely like my warm cup of coffee in the morning, whether it's regular coffee or mushroom coffee or trying some Herba Mate or other products. I'm kind of the girl at the health food store. I don't know, I'm probably going to age myself. I do that quite often. Um, that I'm a Mikey kid. What that means is when I grew up, there used to be a kid on a commercial. His name was Mikey, and the whole line was, Mikey'll eat it, because, he's trying to push a product, I think a cereal. And, the whole thing was, if Mikey eats it, then everybody will eat it. Well, in the health food store, I'm kind of like the Mikey. If we get a new product, I can't help myself. I've got to buy it, I got to try it. And I think that's, what I enjoy about sales, too, is because it's stuff that I'm not showing you anything or eating anything that I'm not eating myself. And I think that's kind of been my whole life in any type of job I've been in. I usually come from having experienced it. And this is kind of the same thing. Cooking has come a long way from when I began cooking. When I first started cooking, I was cooking to impress my son's father. I mean, I remember reading a book when I was younger, and it was Jerry Hall's autobiography, and her mother's advice to her was that you should be a cook in the kitchen, a maid in the living room, and a whore in the bedroom. And so I took that really serious. I mean, not the whore in the bedroom part, but, well, that's too much information. But I definitely took that, one way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And so I started upping my cooking skills, but I still was just, my mom was, she came from the Depression, and so my mom's, our spaghetti had everything that was in a kitchen sink in it. I mean, I said the kitchen sink, oh my God, that's so funny. Everything in the refrigerator, that used to be an old saying, put everything in, except the kitchen sink. But she would I never knew what we were going to have in our spaghetti, that's what I'm trying to say. And it kind of really turned me off to food, to be honest. God bless my mom's heart, and, and she's passed, and her biscuits and gravy, oh my gosh, were the best in the world. And I have a story around that I'll share at some point. But, she just was cooking so that we had something to eat. Back then, if you had a piece of toast and you had some gravy with some hamburger on it with some green beans, you were like feeling like you were living high on the hog, and, that was like the late 60s, early 70s. Like I said, I'm definitely dating and aging myself, but that's okay. As they say, I look good for my age. Death becomes me, I guess, is the trick I used to say, or the joke I used to say. But I think I'm also going to put some apple cider vinegar in this, so give me just a minute to go get that. So, when I first started cooking, I really wanted to learn how to cook, and I really decided I'm going to look at that Betty Crocker recipe book a little bit more. But I still wasn't sure, and back then we had these great things. You can still find them every once in a while. I love that sound. That smell. And they had these great things where you could buy your protein, some veggies. They had a little cooking bag, and what you do is you get a pan, you put your veggies in along with, your protein. You mix up a little ingredient, whatever the flavor was that, I think it was McCormick, I could be wrong, don't quote me on that, whatever flavor you're cooking, mix it with a little water, you pour it in, you tie it like a turkey bag, and you stick it in the oven. And, oh my gosh, when you got done, it looked like you had slaved all day, because there you had your veggies and your meat, you just threw a salad together, and the cleanup was take that bag, throw it away in the garbage. Gosh, it made me look like I was like a pro cooking, so I kind of really, I think, skated by a little bit with my ex-husband in the fact that as the years went on while we were together, I became a better cook, but originally I was kind of faking my way through it, and that's what they say, right? Nobody becomes a pro just by stepping onto the field, and even if they're pro material, practice, really makes them better. And I think that's, I'm going to add some beets now. So this is, so far I have cabbage in, and I have some carrots, I have some beets. We're going to put our apples in last, because obviously they're going to cook faster. Now you could add some protein to this. Like I said, this recipe was inspired by a German recipe that when I worked at Hannah's Bakery in California, that they used to do in what California called the winter months. I saw this post by someone calling themselves a recovering Californian, and I kind of laughed because I guess I don't know if I'm recovering or surviving, but definitely moving from the West Coast to the East Coast has been quite a change. And when it's quite good, I'm not going to complain at all. But they had during like November to probably January 1st, and if they had a special customer that requested it, because she would do that every once in a while. I remember we put on the board that we were doing, whatever she called it, like the German dinner or the sausage, and oh my gosh, people would start calling on the phone for it, and the whole bakery would start smelling like this. It was just wonderful. So, you could put in some sausage in this. I tried looking up online if it was called anything. Some people refer to it being a German dish, like I said, from the bakery, Bavarian something, but, with anything I've learned with cooking, and if you follow my blogs going way, way back, I really don't know if I call what I do cooking anymore as much as experimenting in the kitchen, because, growing up a meat, egg, potatoes girl, and then finding out that I was allergic to all those things, and then having to change my diet drastically and save my health, I have to experiment because I miss those things. I miss, I miss having a marinated piece of protein with, teriyaki sauce on it, or, one of the things when I first found out about my food allergies was that I found out that the food I could eat was hunter-gatherer food. I was not allergic to venison, to lamb, at that time turkey, because it wasn't an industrial meat. It's, you look back, it hasn't been an industrial meat for a very long time. It was more a traditional meat flavor. The same way with pork. Pork didn't used to be so much on our shelves with me growing up. That was really rare that you saw, the kind of pork products. And turkey, I remember, and I love my cousin very much. I love you, Kelly. That she teased me once because when I went to go stay with her, I couldn't have the beef. I had to have turkey. And to them, it was like the other white meat, like who grounds turkey and eats it as a burger, that's like a delicacy or something. And it wasn't that. It was just that at that time, it was very rare. And with my food issues, I had to change my eating habits. And it did it. When I first had food allergies, going to family functions, and at that time we went to large functions. I had, the parties at my house were, the minimum guest for a dinner party was 10 usually, and 10 to 12, and birthday parties were, we're talking, could be 75 to 100 people, even more sometimes, depending on, whose birthday it was and what you're doing. And to go there and not be able to eat all those foods I did all my life, some people were offended by it, other people understood. It was just really difficult. So I've had a real battle with food, and the fact that food is very social, but it's also very healing. This has been very therapeutic to play in the kitchen. Like some of the things, I'm going to put a little butter in this because I don't know, I'm feeling a little butter that will help. That taking control of your eating, it's the one thing you can do for your health. You know what I mean? Like, with health costs the way they are, and even, grocery costs, for God's sake, we've got to really what are we going to do? And if you're not eating healthy, and you're not taking care of your body, it doesn't matter what other things you cut out. It's like, when I really didn't have a lot of money, I still had to eat this way because it's an allergy. It's not something I had a choice. And a lot of people trying to be helpful would give me these, great recipes, but I couldn't do them because I couldn't eat anything. And then when I'd go look in the library or go to the bookstore for recipe books that fit me, none of them really, they either had meat in them, and most of it was chicken with a side of chicken, or, it had eggs with a side of eggs. Well, I just said chicken and eggs, but you know what I mean. Like, I couldn't really escape it, and especially when my body was turning against me. I mean, I was, once again, aging myself, I was like John Travolta, the kid in the plastic bubble. I mean, I was allergic to everything I'd known my whole life, including my pets, but later on, I realized it was my body trying to tell me, warning, Will Robinson, something's wrong, and you need to pay attention. And the doctors, 15 minutes isn't enough, and they're not like Marcus Welby. Gosh, I am really aging myself on this video. You can Google any of these things if you don't know, or ask me in the comment section. I'll be happy to tell you. But your doctor doesn't have the kind of time you think they do. Not like they do on television. You could be lucky. I've got lucky a couple times and really got some really great nurse practitioners or doctors who really, they're in medicine for medicine and not burned out. But, how can a doctor do his job when he's only allowed 15 minutes with you? You're sick 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, And I remember a good friend of mine, when I originally got sick many years ago, her mom was a nurse and we used to hang out. I tell this story every once in a while because it's really eye-opening. And she was like, you know why they call it a practice when it comes to doctors? And I was like, no, why is that? And she said, well, because originally, back in those days, they practiced on cadavers, not dummies like they do now. Real people donated their bodies after they died to help medical students learn how to do things better. And she said, until then, it's only books and cadavers, and then when they finally get their medical degree, they go into a practice because they're practicing, and if they want to go into a different field, then they go into that field, but otherwise they're in a practice. And I went, wow. And she said, at that time we had HMOs and PPOs. I don't know what it is now. This world, they have so many different insurances and stuff. But back then she said, the HMO, you're going to have to get permission for everything. And she's right. It was just stalling. I was just getting sicker and sicker. And she said, if you switch to a PPO, go right to the specialists, you could get in right away. And we did. It put us in a little bit of debt, but we changed my insurance and ended up paying a little bit more, but she wasn't lying. Back then, that doctor just pulled out his BlackBerry, because once again I'm dating myself, and said, what are you doing next Tuesday? And I was like, what? Wow, what a difference those two things. And the difference was money, unfortunately, money. And everything that some of those nurses and doctors had told me on the way were validated as I went along. I like to share the story about how, a nurse was talking to me once about some of my issues, and ended up asking me if I knew anything about the blood type diet. I said I didn't know. She asked if I knew what my blood type was, and I said I do. I'm an AB negative, and she said go look it up and see. And I went to Barnes and Noble and I looked up this book, and I go, they had a little shopping book at first, so I just go, because I used to take a lot of shortcuts back then, and I looked at the book, and all the foods I had been eating my whole life, all the foods I enjoyed, that book said I was allergic to. And I actually threw that book aside and was like crazy. Like, I would know if I'm allergic to food, I guess the same way people say you'd know if you were abducted. Well, got a story about that one too. But here's the thing, I didn't know. My body was telling me, but I didn't know how to listen. And by the time I got to the doctor, I didn't know how to express it, and it was food. And so I remember at one point, a immunologist was like, "Have you ever had a food allergy test?" And I was like, "No." And so we went, and that test, everything that that book had said that was toxic for my body was everything that I was allergic to that I've been eating my whole life. I mean, you know, what a shock. I'm telling you, when I went home that day, I'll share that story one day on live. I went home devastated. Like, what am I going to eat? Like, what am I going to do? And, you know, I don't even know how to eat these things. And I remember wanting to go through the Taco Bell drive-thru so bad, because that was my go-to, my comfort food then. Nice Taco Bell run, and I couldn't go. And then I walked in the grocery store and looked around and was like, "Oh my God, what do I eat?" And I broke down in tears. And so I over the years have learned to listen to my body, and sometimes the things that I've set aside I go back to, because maybe I wasn't ready to learn that, or maybe there wasn't enough, I don't know, evidence to basically say, hey, you know, something is happening. You know I share a lot of personal my stuff while I'm cooking, but, you know, that's what the kitchen's about. The kitchen is a place for me to, like I said, experiment with food, be grateful to where I am, and share my recipes and my ideas with my friends and my family, so that they have options. And I don't want anybody to ever feel the way I did that day in that parking lot, when I felt like my whole world just kind of came crashing down. Like I told you, food was my social go-to. I was in a, you know, I was surrounded by a big Portuguese family, lots of events, and been eating these foods my whole life. But I'd also been sick my whole life, you know, and nobody knew what was wrong. And, you know, obviously, I'm still uncovering things. And when you watch my videos, you could see I have a long list of what they consider illnesses that are married together because of that. But that doesn't mean I can give up, you know. Just because I'm finding out these things later in life doesn't mean that I can't enjoy a good meal, good friends, and chances to over and over again improve my health, my well-being. Well, this is starting to look really good. I was wanting to be a bad girl and throw some potatoes in here with it, but obviously I'm not. But this is really simple, like you saw. You know, the prep work, I did a little short video on the prep work. If you're interested in that, you could go over and see my prep work. You know how I'm still new, trying to figure out the video thing. Like today, this is me talking to you at the same time, because I'm hoping to go live. And then you'll be able to share these experiences in the kitchen with me while I'm cooking. And I'll be able to talk back and forth to you, and hopefully we can share our recipes, share our stories, and then sit down and have a good meal together. You know, food isn't something that has to separate us because of choices or allergies. I took a lot of heat in the beginning because in order for me to explain easy without going into details about my egg allergies, I just said I was a vegan. And boy, I took a lot of chastising over that. And then when I talked about allergies, nobody really knew about food allergies back then, except for like peanut allergies. We're talking, you know, over 20 years ago. And, you know, we've come a long way. I tell everybody now, stop complaining about, you know, this gluten-free stuff. We didn't have any of this. When I found out what I had, there was nothing except health food stores that had products, and they were so foreign, and at that time they felt expensive, because obviously cheap food is cheap for a reason. But look at us now. We are a whole different world, and there's a lot of options, and now we can go into each other's kitchens and share recipes live or on video. I didn't have that back then. It was just me watching videos and checking out cookbooks from the library like a library junkie. But, well, I'm going to put this in my dish now. I'm going to have a little of it now, and then I'm going to save a little bit for later. Um, I've really enjoyed you guys spending some time with me in the kitchen, and I look forward to our next meal together. I know I was doing some breakfasts, but here's a nice lunch or dinner for this winter. Like I said, add some protein if you want. Sausage is where I think it's at. I think that would be really good if you put that in there. And some potatoes would be good if you like kind of like a hash. But otherwise, just plain it'll be good. Well, thanks again for spending time with me. And until next time, I have a friend that says bon appetit. So bon appetit.